The lights flicker across capitals and villages alike. Imagine a continent that moves from chronic power shortages to reliable, round-the-clock electricity, not in decades but within a generation. That is the scale of the claim, a deliberate program led by Traore that turns African nations into a nuclear-powered bloc with the technical capacity, regulatory discipline, and workforce to manage advanced reactors safely. In the next minutes, you will hear why an existing African nuclear success story makes this possibility plausible, how baseload nuclear capacity changes economies, what it would take to scale safely across borders, and why this shift rattles established powers. This is not fantasy. It is a strategic argument about capability, sovereignty, and the industrial leap energy security can unlock. Africa's modern nuclear story did not begin yesterday. One facility on the continent has already operated long-term under rigorous oversight and periodic modernization, demonstrating that high-precision, safety-first operations can be sustained locally. That precedent matters because nuclear energy is as much an institutional achievement as a technical one. It requires disciplined maintenance cultures, strict regulatory regimes, and highly trained personnel. The experience from an African plant that has passed exhaustive inspections and secured extended operating life shows that the technical and managerial foundations for nuclear programs can be built and maintained on the continent. This success challenges dated assumptions that advanced energy systems are inherently unsuited to African states. It proves that, with the right institutions and commitments, high-technology infrastructure can be managed at world-class standards. The practical value of nuclear power for development is straightforward and compelling. Unlike solar or wind, which fluctuate with weather and daylight, nuclear provides continuous baseload generation, a steady, dependable flow of megawatts that a modern economy needs to run hospitals, factories, data centers, and transport systems without interruption. In regions where rolling blackouts are routine, the addition of reliable nuclear capacity stabilizes grids, reduces reliance on costly fuel imports, and creates a foundation for industrialization. Baseload stability is not an abstract benefit. It lowers production costs, makes long-term investments viable, and protects essential services from sudden outages. In short, dependable power unlocks growth in ways intermittent supplies cannot match. Scaling nuclear across multiple African states changes the development equation. If a single, well-run plant can secure decades of steady output, a coordinated regional program, combining large reactors with smaller, modular units suited for local needs, could distribute firm capacity across borders. That regional approach has two advantages. First, it spreads technical responsibility and operational risk across a network rather than concentrating it in a single node. Second, it enables economies of scale in training, regulation, and supply chains, standardized training centers, shared regulatory frameworks, and continental supplier networks lower unit costs and improve safety through harmonized standards. A regional grid powered in part by nuclear baseload generation would allow countries to specialize, export manufactured goods rather than raw materials, and insulate domestic economies from volatile global fuel markets. None of this is possible without people and institutions. Nuclear programs demand deep investments in human capital, engineers, operators, safety specialists, and regulators who understand procedures, conduct drills, and maintain a culture of precision. The most successful programs are those that deliberately build domestic expertise through long-term training, apprenticeships, and partnerships with international technical organizations while retaining national oversight of critical decisions. Developing a continental pipeline of nuclear professionals converts technology transfer into sustainable capacity, a necessary precondition if multiple countries are to operate reactors safely and independently. The geopolitical impact of a credible Africa-led nuclear initiative is immediate and profound. Energy independence reduces leverage that external powers derive from bilateral energy dependencies or from controlling critical supply chains. As countries gain firm, domestic electricity, They acquire space to pursue industrial policy, negotiate from strength, and choose partners on different terms. That rebalancing unsettles actors accustomed to shaping outcomes through energy or finance. It is not a call for confrontation. It is a redefinition of agency. When African states demonstrate the ability to run advanced energy systems, they assert that their development choices will be made on technical and national priorities rather than by external imperatives. Safety and oversight must remain the non-negotiable center of any expansion. Nuclear energy carries risks that are manageable only through exhaustive regulation, independent oversight, and transparent accountability. Any credible program must embed robust national regulators with technical independence, strict licensing and continuous review processes, emergency preparedness plans coordinated across regions, and transparent public reporting. Environmental impact assessments, community consultations, and fair compensation and resettlement procedures must accompany site selection and construction. Building social legitimacy, ensuring affected communities see clear benefits and protections is as important as meeting technical safety metrics. Economic transformation is the practical payoff that drives the argument. Continuous electricity enables industries to operate 24/7, creating jobs across manufacturing, processing, and services. It makes possible large-scale manufacturing that adds value to raw materials at home rather than exporting them. Reliable power also attracts investment and improves overall competitiveness, because firms will not be forced to factor frequent outages into their cost structures. Over time, the multiplier effects from construction and maintenance to downstream industries that rely on stable supply can be massive. In short, electricity becomes an engine of structural change, not merely a utility. Environmental and climate considerations are integral. Nuclear provides large-scale, low-carbon baseload power, allowing countries to pursue decarbonization without sacrificing industrial growth. Pairing nuclear with renewables and storage creates resilient, lower-carbon energy systems. Yet, environmental integrity requires careful reservoir and land management, strict waste handling regimes, and long-term stewardship plans for spent fuel. These are not insurmountable challenges, but they require funding, legal frameworks, and technical expertise to manage the full life cycle responsibly. There are familiar objections: cost, complexity, political risk that must be addressed candidly. Financing can be structured through phased implementation, blended public-private models, and regional investment vehicles that reduce single-country exposure. Smaller modular reactors offer lower upfront costs and faster deployment for targeted industrial clusters, while larger plants deliver scale efficiencies where appropriate. Strong procurement rules, independent audits, and staged funding linked to performance milestones reduce corruption and fiscal risk. Politically, transparent governance and broad parliamentary and civil society engagement build legitimacy and resilience against short-term shifts. Traore's proposition, if framed as a long-term strategic program rather than a headline grab, rests on three pillars: technical competence, institutional independence, and regional cooperation. Technical competence is cultivated through structured training programs, knowledge exchange, and phased construction that gradually elevates domestic responsibility for complex tasks. Institutional independence ensures regulators and oversight bodies have the authority and resources to act without political interference. Regional cooperation creates mutual insurance, shared standards, cross-border emergency coordination, and common procurement that lower costs and deepen trust. The international reaction is predictable, a mix of curiosity, caution, and strategic recalibration. Partners who value stable, decarbonized power may welcome African leadership in nuclear development. Others will scrutinize governance and safety records closely, rightly so. The constructive path forward lies in transparent multilateral engagement that supports capacity building and accountable financing while respecting African agency. External support should be targeted toward technical assistance, regulatory training, and infrastructure that complements rather than dictates national priorities. Ultimately, The success of any continental nuclear ambition will be judged not by slogans but by deliverables: safe reactors, operating under independent regulation, communities benefiting from predictable power and jobs, industries scaling up, and robust environmental safeguards in place. If those conditions are met, the argument that Africa can become a genuine global technological actor gains force. The alternative, rushed programs lacking oversight or social legitimacy, risks creating crises that erode trust and waste scarce resources. Traore's proposal is provocative because it compresses a strategic argument into a bold headline: technology and sovereignty travel together. The deeper point is less about weapons or dominance and more about capability, building infrastructure that anchors development, secures industry, and creates the conditions for independent policy choices. If managed responsibly, nuclear power can be a tool for emancipation from perennial scarcity. If mismanaged, it will become a costly liability. The difference lies in preparation, transparency, and an unwavering commitment to safety. In the end, the question confronting policymakers, citizens, and partners is straightforward. Will African states treat advanced energy as an integrated state project with technical rigor, institutional independence, and regional cooperation, or will they pursue symbolic projects without the scaffolding needed for long-term safety and benefit? Traore's proposal forces a choice. It invites planners to imagine a continent that powers its own industries, trains its own professionals, and negotiates from capacity rather than dependency. That is the strategic question at the heart of this debate, and the answer will shape whether Africa becomes a region defined by chronic power shortages, or one where the lights stay on and economies move forward.